Hello, and welcome to another session of What the. Today's topic of discussion is how can we get into productive conversations? Well, in my opinion, the best approach is to remove labels from the conversation. Those labels might be attributed to different types of ethnicities, social classes, religions, politics, so on and so forth. So, for example, if I was going to get into a conversation per se regarding, well, we'll just say religion without utilizing any type of labels, I would utilize philosophical premises in regards to my approach. And those philosophical premises would be, like be kind to your neighbor, do unto those that you would like them to do unto you. I guess best, just respect thy neighbor and so on, and love thy neighbor. Well, you understand the principles of what I'm trying to explain. So, how to perpetuate those conversations and hopefully lead by example. Speak of topics where people can agree upon, that are easily agreed upon. We mentioned the weather. We can ask them what their favorite song is or their artist and so on. I would stay away from the lyrics, but just kind of go on to the general sense of why they do appreciate. I was like, oh yeah, that song, absolutely. Is it because of the melody, the beat? And then if they say they like the lyrics, and oh, okay, yeah, the lyrics, and then you have to understand, you have to actually be familiar with the song if you say you agree with their approach. And you're like, okay, I don't know if I've heard that song, because then at that point you'd have to talk about the lyrics and whether or not you found common ground in the lyrics of a song or not. So I steer away from all gospel, and I pretty much rock and roll, and there's a few rap songs I like, and I do like jazz, and I don't know necessarily the words to jazz, although I did see B.B. King, and he was a jazz guitarist, some people say, but I appreciate that gentleman. He was awesome. Saw him play at the House of Blues in Las Vegas, which was a great venue. It was an intimate venue, so I can always bring up those stories in regards to music. So, keeping the conversation moving forward, and that's what it is. The more common ground you find in a conversation, the easier the conversation is to manage. And what I mean by manage is not necessarily controlling a conversation, but managing a conversation to keep it moving forward. So keep it lighthearted. If there is some type of circumstance where labels become part of the conversation, do your best in understanding that person's perspective, because it's more than just a label. It goes into a personal experience and how they might be affected by that specific well, it'd be a specificity of the conversation, where it's focused. And if they keep pressing you on that, then you realize that maybe they're not ready to enter into the conversation that you want to enter into. And then you might say, well, hey, you know what, I gotta run, it's getting late, and then that's where you decide that the conversation is ending. So always do your best in finding that common ground, and do your best to get rid of labels, because really labels are just unproductive, because they become demographics of a conversation, and then at that point, who really wants to be thrown into a box or to be categorized? So that's typically what people want to do if they get into a label, because first thing people can do is like, okay, well, they can throw you into either a male or female, and that's just visually. And then at that point, they can ask you if you're Republican or Democrat, and then they can go into asking you what your religious views are, and then they can ask you, well, so on and so forth. My labels that I like to be referred to are basically sports teams. Are you a Colorado Buffalo fan? Yeah, absolutely. And I could tell them about the story where I played in the Peanut Bowl at Folsom Field when I was in 7th grade, and we were the Peanut Bowl champions, and that's where the Colorado Buffaloes play, is at Folsom Field. So I do have a little bit of history with this team that I do not mind being labeled as a Colorado Buffalo fan person. So rather than getting into a question or into a conversation where you're all, what the, try and keep things simple and move into a direction of where you know that it's competition could exist on playing fields, and that's where they should exist, where it's only just a competition of sports teams and so on, and it's a good distraction from the serious nature of the drama that currently coincides with ambiguous conversations of this label, this label, this label, this label, and if you were to label all those labels, what would it be? And then people come up with different labels for all the labels and so on. So anyway, this has been another session of What The.